Coming up today, in a speech marking Korea's Liberation Day, President Park Geun-hye praises Koreans' can-do spirit. She also urges North Korea to lay down its nuclear weapons and come out of the international wilderness. 10 lawmakers from Korea's ruling and opposition parties have travelled to Korea's easternmost Dokdo Island to mark Liberation Day. The island continues to be falsely claimed by Japan. Plus, Team Korea scoops a bronze in men's wrestling at the 2016 Olympics in Rio, but it's Usain Bolt who's grabbing the headlines, becoming the first sprinter to win 3 successive 100-metre golds. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 15th of August. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon, Korea marks its 71st Liberation Day today, which commemorates the anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan's colonial rule from 1910 to 1945. The occasion is one of the most important for boosting pride in the country, and it's a time to reflect on Korea's past, present, and future. In her annual Liberation Day address, President Park Geun-hye told Koreans that they can do it all, just as their ancestors have, while also calling on North Korea to take the path to unification through denuclearization. Our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun starts us off.
President Park highlighted Koreans' can-do spirit, which she said has taken the country to where it is now, after overcoming all the odds over the past 7 decades. After all, Korea has gone from being a country with a per GDP capita of just $67 to the world's 11th largest economy. In her Liberation Day speech on Monday, President Park also said Korea can once again tackle outstanding challenges through reforms and new growth engines.
우리는 해낼 수 있는 저력을 갖고 있습니다. 할 수 있다는 신념과 긍지를 토대로 우리 앞에 놓여 있는 변화와 개혁의 과제를 완수해내고 다시 한번 힘차게 도약의 미래로 나아갑시다.
The president also called on Pyongyang to fulfill its role and responsibility in the international community and urged the North to immediately stop developing weapons of mass destruction, end its nuclear program, and halt its provocations.
진정한 광복은 8천만 민족 모두가 자유와 인권을 누리며 더 이상 이산의 아픔과 고통이 없는 통일 대한민국을 만드는 것이고 그것이 우리에게 주어진 역사적 과업이라고 믿습니다.
President Park invited North Korea to join its efforts toward unification, saying it will provide North Koreans with equal opportunities and the right to pursue happiness. She also noted that Seoul will provide a path to peace and mutual prosperity should Pyongyang make the right choice. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's rival party lawmakers are also busy marking the nation's Liberation Day, taking part in various events to mark the day across the width of the nation. Our Jim has a rundown.
10 ruling and opposition party lawmakers traveled to the nation's easternmost islet of Dokdo on Monday to mark the 71st anniversary of Korea's Liberation Day. The delegation, headed by ruling Saenuri Party lawmaker Na Kyung-won, are on Dokdo to give words of encouragement to the police officers stationed there and to inspect the facilities.
We must let the Japanese government know that the Dokdo is without any doubt Korean territory, and make Tokyo acknowledge this indisputable fact.
The visit comes despite a formal protest from Japan's foreign ministry and its embassy in Seoul.
It's completely natural for South Korean parliamentarians to visit Dokdo. It's a South Korean territory. It's disrespectful for Japan's foreign ministry to tell us not to go.
As Japan recently made further fresh claims to Dokdo, Seoul's foreign ministry said it again made clear to Tokyo that Dokdo is Korea's territory geographically, historically, and by international law. While some lawmakers are on Dokdo, the leaders of Korea's four main political parties attended a ceremony at the Sejong Center for the Performing Arts in Seoul to celebrate Liberation Day. Meanwhile, the former co-leader of the minor opposition People's Party, An Chol-soo, will soon arrive back in Seoul after a 10-day academic trip in the U.S., where he sought new growth engines for Korea with a focus on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And touted as a possible candidate in the 2017 presidential race, resigned in June to take responsibility for a corruption scandal involving 3 of its party members. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Now, marking the 71st anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe opted to send a ritual donation to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine instead of visiting in person. It's the 4th straight year Abe has decided to stay away on this anniversary. The move is seen as a gesture to show Korea and China, who suffered so greatly because of Japan's wartime atrocities, that Tokyo is eager to rebuild frayed ties. Pundits also see it as an attempt to improve the chance of a summit between Abe and Chinese President Xi Jinping at the G20 summit in China next month. However, dozens of Japanese lawmakers are set to pay their respects later in the day. Japan's Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary visited the shrine this morning, and the Reconstruction Minister paid a visit last Thursday. The Yasukuni Shrine honours Japan's war dead, including more than a dozen Class A war criminals. Now, locals weren't the only ones fighting for Korea's independence from Japan's colonial rule. Foreigners were also working for Korea's cause. One of these unsung heroes was a medical missionary who showed Japan's wrongdoings to the world through the power of photography. Our Kim Hyun-bin introduces us to Dr. Frank W Schofield.
A Canadian family is admiring the view of the Han River in Seoul. They are the descendants of Dr. Frank W Schofield, a foreigner who took an active role in the movement for Korea's independence from Japanese imperial rule. Dr. Schofield's grandson, granddaughter, and great-granddaughter are in Seoul to commemorate his legacy.
He's a great grandfather. We knew he was quite important, but we didn't know everything about him. All of that came to light after his passing.
Dr. Schofield's photos of Korea's March 1st independence movement in 1919 will serve as important documentation for the world of Japan's brutal occupation. A month after those historic demonstrations, he also photographed the aftermath of the Cheomni massacre, where Japanese imperial forces slaughtered some 30 villagers in Cheomni in an effort to put down the independence movement spreading throughout the country. The visit to Seoul by Dr. Schofield's family is especially meaningful this year, as 2016 marks the 100th anniversary of the doctor-turned-activist's first visit to Korea. When he died in 1970, he became the first foreigner to be buried in Korea's national cemetery.
And I meet more and more people, like Dean says, that either were touched by Dr. Schofield. As a family member, I'm starting to feel more like, like this is where he was meant to be, and this is where he wanted to be, and this is a place where he called home.
This year, the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs has invited more than 40 descendants of independence fighters to attend commemorations in Korea, and plans to continue to expand the program so their sacrifices will never be forgotten. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
So today is Korea's Liberation Day and the last day of a 3-day holiday weekend, which means expressways headed back to Seoul are forecast to be heavily congested this afternoon. According to the Korea Expressway Corporation, the expressway heading from the east coast to Seoul has been congested since this morning. You can see the cars and the traffic jam there. As of 10 a.m., the estimated travel time from Gangneung on the east coast to Seoul was 5 hours, a journey that will take you around twice the time it might take under normal circumstances. The traffic on northbound highways from Busan and other areas in the south is expected to peak around 3 p.m., so in around 3 hours from now, before easing at around 10 p.m. Traffic authorities estimate around 500,000 vehicles will enter the Seoul metropolitan area on this Monday. Now, Korea is known for having long work hours that often stretch long into the night. Well, recent OECD figures again prove this is true, showing that Koreans work the second longest hours compared to other member countries. Oh Soo-young with the details.
Koreans work the second longest hours in the OECD according to recent data, and the ranking remains unchanged from a year ago. The average worker put in 8 hours a day and 22 days a month for 2,113 hours last year. That's almost 350 more hours than their peers in other OECD countries, or 43 extra days. Germans enjoyed the shortest hours last year, spending 1,371 hours at work. The Dutch came second with just over 1,400 hours. Despite the hard work, it seems the extra hours haven't paid off for workers in Korea. Koreans' annual real income based on purchasing power parity amounted to roughly $33,000 last year, falling short of the OECD average of $41,000. Split by the hour, the paycheck comes down to $15.67. That's about half of what their American and German counterparts earn, and 2/3 of the OECD average of $23.36. The only country with longer working hours than Korea and a lower average income was Mexico, with more than 2,200 hours a year and under $15,000 in income. The average work hours in Korea have gradually been decreasing over the years, down almost 240 hours from 10 years ago. But it looks like there's still a lot of catching up to do. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Now, a state of emergency has been declared and the National Guard activated in the U.S. state of Wisconsin following violent riots that erupted in response to the police shooting of a black man in Milwaukee. Kim Mo-kyun reports.
Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker announced a state of emergency and activated the National Guard in the city of Milwaukee on Sunday, a day after a police officer killed a suspect who allegedly turned toward the officer with a gun.
The National Guard will be activated, but it will not be deployed unless Chief Flynn decides to deploy it. 125 members of the National Guard are on their way to Milwaukee as we speak.
Police Chief Edward Flynn said the officer tried to stop the 23-year-old suspect, identified as Sylville Smith, because he was behaving suspiciously and had to chase him after he ran. Flynn added that Smith did not drop his gun as ordered before he was shot dead. At a news conference, Chief Flynn said both the police officer and the suspect were black and that Smith had a lengthy record with the Milwaukee Police Department. At least 200 people reacted violently to news of the shooting. A mob damaged at least 2 police cars and vandalized several businesses, including a gas station and an auto parts store. 17 people were arrested and 4 police officers had to be treated for injuries. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
So let's take a look at the latest from the 2016 Olympics in Rio, and Sunday was another action-packed day. You could call it a super Sunday. So let's get a wrap-up with our Yoon Shin, who's covering the games for us. Yoon Shin, a lot to talk about on day 9.
Absolutely, Mark. Expected victories came alongside some disappointments on Sunday. Team Korea's Kim Yeon-woo, beating his Croatian opponent, has won a bronze medal in the men's 75-kilo wrestling. But even so, Kim seemed less than thrilled. And when it was his turn to take his place on the podium, Kim burst into tears. Earlier, there had been some controversy in the round of 16 when Kim's Russian opponent was leading the match with 6-3. Kim pulled a throw that received 2 points. Kim's coach then challenged the ruling and claimed the Korean wrestler should have received a full 4 points. The claim was dismissed and Kim lost the round of 7-5. Kim, even though wasn't able to bring home gold on Liberation Day as he hoped, his fellow countrymen showed a great deal of respect and appreciation for his efforts, with some fans calling the medal a golden bronze. Team Korea also had high expectations for women's volleyball, and they did not disappoint. Korea defeated Cameroon 3-0 to seal its place at the quarterfinals, alongside with the U.S., the Netherlands, Serbia, and China. And Korea will likely take on the Netherlands or Serbia in the quarterfinal, which is scheduled for Tuesday. And in men's table tennis, Korea beat Sweden 3-1 in the quarterfinal on Sunday, securing its place in the semis. The nation, with the bronze in 2008 and the silver in 2012, is among the medal favorites this year, but they will have to give their all in the semifinal match against China, since the 2012 champion has the intimidating reputation of being virtually unbeatable. Now, we've surely seen a number of double and triple gold medalists this year, but on Sunday, a talented young athlete captivated the crowd with some gravity-defying moves while picking up her third gold. I'm talking about U.S. gymnast Simone Biles, of course. On top of her Olympic achievements, the 19-year-old glows with positive energy, and her piercing confidence is vivid in both her performances and interviews.
Well, it's definitely an amazing feeling, and we have a lot to carry on because everyone else, like before us, they set the bar so high. But other than that, we just try to have fun and see what happens. We don't really think of the pressure.
In the women's vault on Sunday, the first-time Olympian finished the event with a score of 15.966 on average from her two vaults. That's more than 0.7 ahead of the silver medalist from Russia. In previous events, Biles claimed gold in the team competition as well as all around, and she's hoping to sweep all 5 of the competitions she's participating. Her last 2 individual events, the beam and the floor, are scheduled for Monday and Tuesday local time. And finally, making history to prove he's still the fastest sprinter on Earth is none other than Usain Bolt. The world record-holding Jamaican runner finished the 100-meter dash in 9.81 seconds, beating Justin Gatlin of the U.S. by 0.08 seconds. The Lightning Bolt became the first athlete to claim 3 consecutive golds in the men's 100-meter athletics. That's a wrap of the latest we have so far from Sunday's action, and now here's the schedule for Monday's events.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for tuning in. To all our Korean viewers around the world, happy Liberation Day. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next one coming up at 3 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.